Hello, everyone. Back here today, we have Tyler Baxley here. He's a cross-country coach. He's a sports performance consultant. He has a master degree in sports psychology, and he's a 12-time ultramarathon finisher. How incredible is that? Please welcome Tyler Baxley in California. Hi, Tyler.
Thanks,
How are you?
Johannes. Thanks, Johannes. Yeah, it's 15 times. I need to
15
update
times
that. Not that it
already.
matters, but still trying to get
Wow.
better in that sport and still learning a lot. So
Wow. Can you tell us something about you? Can you give us a short
yeah.
introduction?
So my background is in sports psychology, which is like the psychology of sport. So the whole like internal, I guess less tangible world, but
Mhm.
like that side of sport. And then my background is really specific with like endurance sports. So running, swimming, kayaking,
Mhm.
anything outside pretty much. That's what I did my research on, like open water swimming,
Mhm.
mountain biking, Ironman triathlon, all of those sort of pursuits where you're just doing the same thing for an extended amount of time.
Right.
I've worked with lots of different ages and I'm currently coaching, although our season, we don't know if we're going to be having it like everywhere else in the world. So yeah, been doing a lot of Zoom invite chats like this and yeah, looking forward to learning yeah, chatting real quickly here. So.
Right. Thank you for the introduction. So you guys have to know that Tyler is especially working on the topic resilience, and this is basically the topic we would like to discuss. I mean, resilience. Maybe you guys have heard of. You have to be resilient as an athlete, and resilience is so important. But I'm sure Tyler can tell us a lot about it. So basically, the very first question is, what is resilience, and what are the benefits for an athlete to be resilient?
Yeah, it's a good question. Like you said, a lot of people throw it around all the time. Oh, you have to be resilient without ever um, providing like a definition or a way to quantify it. So people are just like, okay, that sounds good, but what does that mean? So based on what I've learned, resilience it's pretty much the ability to thrive during like difficult or adverse situations. So it could be in sport, it could be when you're falling behind where you wanted to be, if you're losing, if you're really fatigued, if you're really tired. There's a lot of different ways. Obviously, if you've ever played any sport, I don't care which sport it is, there's going to be difficult situations. So resilience is basically being able to like, some people they just get by in those situations or they hope to get out of them. Resilience is something that you're able to thrive in those situations. But I say that it's an ability because when I say that, I mean it's something that you can train. So
Right.
it doesn't necessarily matter what your skill level is. Um, anybody anybody's capable of improving how resilient they are, and that's through training. So
Right. What do you think? How important is resilience, as being you have it as a skill for an athlete?
I think it's I mean it's the cornerstone of I think of what separates really good athletes or elite athletes from everybody else, right? When
Mhm.
their back's against the wall, when everyone's watching you, when there's all that pressure,
Mhm.
um, they thrive in it, and other people fold in it. And I think the resilient athletes are the ones that thrive in those situations when things are really tough, when everyone's really tired. They don't back down. They like look forward to it, right? Like dig in because they're like, I want to see how the situation's going to unfold. So I think really, in what I've learned on my research on this is with high level endurance athletes is that they're able to embrace like uncertainty.
Okay.
So when they're in the unknown, they're not scared of it. They're like, okay, this is what we trained for. Like we're gonna rely on our training and
So
trust our training,
accepting the situation in some way.
accepting, yep, no matter
Right.
what it is. And another way they do that is by training. They set difficult goals, right? There's a good quote I'd heard a while ago. If it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. So
Right.
it's
Mhm.
setting a goal that just stretches you just far enough to where you're going to be uncomfortable, right? And then you're going to grow, and then you keep setting challenging goals. You keep growing. So
Mhm.
and part of that means you're going to be losing. So
Right.
it's not being afraid of that either,
Mhm.
which is a lot easier said than done.
Right. how can I, for example, as an athlete, become resilient? So how can I train that?
Um, there's a lot of, I mean, I could,
All
there's a
right.
lot of different ways to do that. I think it's seeing everything as a learning opportunity
Mm-hmm.
and losing, even winning, right? Instead of having this like definitive, if I lose, I screwed up, and you get like reactionary, and then you write you're way too hard on yourself. But then if you win, you act as though you have nothing to learn. There's learning in both.
All right.
Um, and I think another one is like not fight, like I said earlier, not fighting fear, not fighting uncertainty or fatigue, really embracing that and learning to work with it. And I think a lot of that is coming down to like the conversation that you're having with yourself. So self, in sports psychology, the term is self-talk.
So self-talk.
Um, so if something's going poorly in a competition, and you have this conversation with yourself saying in your head, I'm a loser, or even thinking something close to that, like, well, if you lose, guess what? Or if something bad happens, that's going to validate, and then you're going to start thinking, oh, I'm a loser, I'm a loser. It's like, so instead, become aware of that conversation. Don't try to ignore it. Like, so when it does pop up, but then have, we call them mantras or keywords, write down like a little phrase. I like song lyrics.
Oh,
I'm
cool.
a big music fan, so I'll have a song lyric in my head. Like for me, when I'm doing a 100-mile running race, if it's mile 65, I'm really tired. Um, there's a lot, it's just sitting in my own thoughts, right? And there's,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to have that thing, like, I'll just tell myself, just keep going. Or you have some sort of phrase or a song lyric that, so when I have those, like, oh, hey, this hurts really badly, I'm really tired, I want to quit,
Mm-hmm.
I just tell myself, all right, just keep going, or just one step at a time. And then I literally, okay, I just focus on that. And it like, I'm aware of those negative thoughts, but I'm not like ignoring them. So when they pop up, I can just like, just say that, have that word at my disposal, and I just flip the switch.
That's so interesting because I've seen a documentary basically about an Austrian who was cycling from from the the northern part of America till the southern part of America. So through whole Canada, U.S., Middle America, and down into Patagonia. And he was saying that when he
Wow.
got really tired, he was listening thousand times to basically the same song over and over again.
Wow. Yeah.
That it was real, like he used it as a kind of an anchor, of course, and as a mantra, as you mentioned. And that he said, like, that really kept me over the fatigue, over fighting with the weather, not giving up, and chasing my goal. So this is something that really like resonates with what you're telling, with what you're telling here now.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think with that too, it's really important to emphasize that, okay, that might have worked for him, and my phrase might work for me, but it might not work for you, or it
Right.
might not work for another person. Or
Right.
it's like, you have to find what works for you, and you keep, like physical training, right? Like exercise, you keep adapting it, those little things. So when you have this thought, you tell yourself this, and then you keep practicing that. And then when the performance comes, say you get really nervous or something before a match, you can just tell
Right.
yourself, have those things at your disposal. They're quick, and you can just, again, and this is something that I think a lot of people think the best athletes in the world don't have to deal with, but that's completely wrong, right? I've interviewed, I don't know if you've heard of Mark Allen. He won the Ironman 6 times in a row,
Wow.
Ironman triathlon.
All right.
And I talked with him for an hour, and he said in his last Ironman, he was 35 years old, and he's still on the latter stages of the marathon. He was still like, oh, I just want to quit. And he just kept telling himself, one more step, like one more step, just make it to the finish. And he ended up winning it.
All
So it just shows you, like, he was, literally every step he's having to flip that. It's like, you don't just say it once, you have to just keep at it. So
right. So that
I
kept
think
him.
that's a good thing for athletes of all levels to know, that, hey, even the LeBron Jameses of the world, and
Yeah.
all the elite levels, they still have to work on this, but a lot of them have practiced
Yeah.
um,
It's a lot
doing
about
it.
practice, and this was basically my
It
next
is.
question, because a lot of people that are reaching out to me, if I'm working with them, they say, okay, I've tried it. We've done it in a session, and I've tried it in competition, and it didn't work, or I don't know, the mantra didn't work.
Yeah,
Um, for you, is that something you really also have to work on during training? To basically
totally.
um, work on your self-talk. To really keep you sharp in that moment.
Yeah, totally. You have to use it in training, I think, because how can you expect it to work when it's time to perform, right? It's just
Yeah.
some meaning, it's some phrase. It's like you have to. So I think you got to write it down, um,
Mhm.
and then it's got to be meaningful. Again, and meaningful to you could be different than meaningful to me. Whether that's a poem or a quote from a book, or something that just resonates with you, right? Everyone has there's different songs, different things that quotes, lines, lyrics
Mhm.
that resonate with people. And if that I don't know, if you find yourself like latching on to something that just, okay, that sounds, I like that. Okay, I'm gonna
Mhm.
use that. Like, do it. Like,
Mhm.
there's no, the only wrong one is the one that's not going to help you pull out of
Um,
that like moment.
right. I
Not pull
mean,
out of it, but navigate it better because you
as
want to
a
be in it. But
as a 15 times, as we heard, ultramarathon finisher, um, I can imagine that goal setting is is crucial because it's such a long distance, right? And setting that as a goal, I mean, you have to train months, maybe years for
mhm.
participating in one, even trying to finish it. Can you tell us something about maybe goal setting, how important it is for athletes?
It's huge. And again, this doesn't matter what level you're at, and I don't think it really matters which sport you're at competing in, right? I mean,
Mm,
fencing and ultramarathon running, I'm sure there's a lot more overlap
sure.
between the two than you might think on the surface.
Mm,
But yeah, critical. I know we've done, if you've heard of SMART goal setting, it's
mhm,
specific, measurable. Yeah, that's a good rubric for goal setting. Long-term, short-term, and daily goals.
mhm,
Um, that's one I use often, right? Okay, this is kind of, at the beginning of the year, that's a common place to
mhm,
start. Or if I have a race 6 months down the road,
mhm,
okay, these are my goals for the next few months, next few weeks, and then each week I break it down into days.
mhm.
But I got to be flexible with that because, um, yeah, life will interfere with your
Right,
goals, as we
right,
all know right now.
right,
So long-term, short-term, daily, and then you have, I think, process, performance, and outcome goals,
right.
which are different criteria. And the only thing with those, the difference between outcome and
Mhm,
process and performance is that outcome is not within your control. Because if you're
mhm.
competing against somebody, you can't control how they're training, you can't control their moves during if a fencing match or an ultra running race.
Yeah.
So I think that's going back to self-talk and then tying it in with goal setting. I think being able to distinguish the variables that are within your control and beyond your control, um,
Mhm.
right when you start training, is something that's going to be, I think, really, really helpful. So it helps because that'll tell you what to focus on.
Right. There's one more thing I really would like to hear your opinion on, and you were mentioning it at the beginning. It was accepting the uncertainty. I can imagine in an ultramarathon, it starts raining or it's getting cold, right?
Yep.
And in fencing, you have your opponent that is, that's coming from ranking, so it can flip sometimes, and then you have the opponent that you cannot fence basically, or the referees coming that you absolutely don't like, and where you really have the feeling that the person doesn't like you as well, and it immediately gives you a bad feeling. And then what often happens with fencers is that they lose, right? And they say, okay, I've lost another time, or this referee really doesn't like me whenever he's refereeing me. He's giving so many touches to the other person. What are your thoughts on this?
Um, I mean, I think again, I don't want to, I'm going to repeat myself here, but I really think it's the referee, are the decisions that he or she makes going to be within your control or beyond your control. If I'm doing a race and it starts raining, is that within my control or beyond my control? And
Mm-hmm.
if it's not within my control, or if it's beyond my control, why am I wasting energy thinking about it? Like, that's not going to help me.
Mm-hmm.
If you're worried about the referee of the match or your opponent, or if he gives them certain touches,
Right,
that's not going to help you at all,
right.
because
Mm-hmm.
you're not lending in, you're like giving mental energy and probably emotional energy to that. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that's going to be advantageous. Like if it starts raining in the middle of a race, which I've had that happen, or it's gotten really hot,
Yeah.
I've been around people and they just, oh, it's so hot, it's so hot, it's so hot. I'm like, that's not that's, and then you see them start like they start falling apart, and
Right.
then it's like you can't. You just have, I don't know. It's accepting. Okay, this is what it. This is like you said. This is what is almost a stoic kind of philosophy.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and this is how I'm. I've trained hard. I'm going to trust my training, and this is I'm
Wow.
going to like execute my plan.
Wow. There is one more thing I would like to ask you. On your homepage, guys, you will find the link to Tyler's homepage, and we will also forward him his details with Instagram and Facebook. Is about you called it the performance journey. Can
Yep.
you tell us something about that?
Yeah. I've broken it down into 3 P's. Prepare, perform, progress.
All right.
So prepare the best you can. Perform. Again, that's a learning opportunity, and then you'll progress after. Um, but understanding that that's not necessarily a linear journey. It's like climbing
Right.
a mountain.
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend share a quote with me. You sometimes when you climb the mountain,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you have to stop. Sometimes you have to go back a little bit. Sometimes you have to shuffle to the side to go
Mm-hmm.
around a barrier, and then then you keep going up, and then you
Right.
get to the top of the mountain, and then you look and you see a bunch of other mountains,
Right.
and then you go and
Right.
do it again. So that's kind of the best way I've heard goal setting or this performance journey. That's how I've come to envision it. It's like a quest in a
Okay.
way, and it doesn't end.
How can people reach out to you? What's the easiest way
Um,
they want to work with you?
yeah, they can go to my website. I've done sports performance consulting with athletes in all different sports. I
Mhm.
actually did take a fencing class in college. I didn't mention that earlier. So little
Great.
experience. I was terrible, but it was fun. Um, and my website is theresilientathlete.org.
Mhm.
I think it's .org or .com. I should know that,
.org.
but I think it's .org. Yeah. And then I have an Instagram as well that I'm fairly active on, and that's the lower space resilient athlete. So I'll actually be updating it more with like pricing or those sorts of things. If you could just reach out to me and you want to have just a quick chat to explore more of my background or more of what I'm doing, I'd be happy to chat. And then from there, if you wanted to
Mhm.
you wanted to learn a little bit more about this stuff, we could set something up. And I'll
I mean,
also be selling some
you're
T-shirts and
you're
hats as well.
located you're located in California, right? But,
Yes.
but people can also reach out to you, for example, for a lesson, if for a session, if over Zoom or something like this. Correct?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
I just talked to
Perfect.
like I told you, I talked to my friend in New Zealand the other day. So you just have to coordinate what time and then you make it work. But
Cool.
yeah. And I'll also be selling some hats and t-shirts on there as well. So just for
Great.
fun. So yeah.
Great. All right, guys. So, Tyler, thank you for your time. It was so interesting to hear you as a sports psychologist telling us about goal setting, about how to become resilient as an athlete, and about your insights. Thank you for having us. It was a really big
Awesome.
pleasure.
Th-
And
Thanks for having me on. I wish we could talk longer.
yeah, that's true. Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
Um, guys, you know what? You will be able to reach out to Tyler over his webpage, and we will have everything prepared for you in the show notes. Thanks for your time, Tyler, and all the best in California.
Awesome. Thank you much. Have a good
Thank you
one.
very much. Bye
Yep.
bye.